Hello guys and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video we're going to be answering Katie's question about how I structure my cars and what's the best way of buying cars. Now for me, I always look to purchase assets that are going to pay for my lifestyle. So for me that's properties, that's index funds. You guys know I love business, I love things that are going to put money in my pocket at the end of every month. And I would urge you guys to look at the options and see if any of those are suitable for yourself. But today, one of my good friends and business partners is up in Porsche returning one of his vehicles. Now he's taken a very different route to me. We've earned about the same amount of money in our lifetime. However, he hasn't invested in property, and as such at the moment, he's returning that Porsche because he's looking at it going, this is a liability that I can't afford. He's going to get some cash back anyway because it's worth about, I think, 36, 37,000. He only owes about 28,000 on it. So he's going to get some cash back. He could use that as a deposit for a new car, but I know that he's looking to buy some assets to pay for the next vehicle. He understands that at the moment he's had to work in order to pay for those vehicles. Now he's in the position where he understands and can see what I've been doing and go, it's much better to buy the asset that pays for the lifestyle. So what I've done today, I've written down some lists of some cars and the sort of costs you're going to pay in terms of PCP or lease costs and the hire purchase costs along with that. But I think, Nick, before we do any of that, let's head over to Porsche. My buddy's just texted me, we need to go and pick him up. Let's go and have a look at some cars there. Let's see how much those cars are. I'm thinking Porsches are going to fall into the sports category with like the Cayman and the Boxster, and into the supercar category with like a GT3 or GT4 or something like that. So I'm thinking we're looking somewhere between £750 and £1,500 per calendar month. We'll see if I'm right while we're there. But Nick, let's head over there now, yeah, shall we? So guys, you join me over at Porsche right now, and as you can see, there is lots of things here to tempt your money away from you. Today we're going to play a little game with Nick and Mark, and we're going to find out how much they think this house? I'm so used to talking about houses. Yeah. This car costs per month and how much the total retail value is. Neither of them have seen, so we're going to go and have a quick look at it. What do we reckon then, guys? How much do we reckon this car costs?
What's the value? The
value is £115,000. So £1,000 less than I bought that 4-bedroom house in Corby for, which is insane really. You get this or you get a 4-bedroom house in Corby. Not anymore, you probably get a 2-bedroom flat. But you still get a 2-bedroom flat for the same price as this. Monthly payments, what are we thinking?
You go first, Mark.
Go on.
What's the deposit?
The deposit on it is £27,500.
Oh, wow, okay. Probably 1,200.
1,200?
I'll go for 1,500.
1,500. It's actually £1,100 a month. So you're both not far off. But guys, I think what's really important is there's a big lesson here, right? Is something like this that's going to cost you £1,000 a month, you can easily afford if you buy the assets to pay for it. So for myself, I bought the house over in Corby. That actually generates me £975 a month in rent. Okay, the profit on it's about 600. So maybe not, I can't quite get the 911 turbo or whatever that one is. But I could certainly afford something a little bit further down the line that's going to be $650 a month, maybe a Cayman S or something like that. And the real important lesson in all of this is that if you buy the assets to pay for the liabilities, then you can have the liabilities in perpetuity. You can always afford it because the asset's always going to be generating money for you. So guys, I think what we're going to do, we're just going to roll some B-roll of the cars here. I know Nick's itching to get stuck. Yeah, he's itching, absolutely itching to get stuck in with his camera. So we'll run some B-roll of the cars, we'll head back to Newbury, we'll get into the figures. I've done some research, I can show you roughly how much each sort of category of car is going to cost you, and I'm going to tell you exactly how many houses you're going to need in order to afford the lifestyle you want. So guys, let's roll the B-roll now. Go, Nick. So buddy, I don't think I've ever paid for any of my vehicles, if I'm honest. I think that I've always, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, I've always made sure investments pay for them. I don't think I've ever paid anything for any of my cars. I think that's just been the way I've lived. Let's go upstairs, let's go to the whiteboard, let's get into it. So guys, we're back at the office, we're back in Newbury. I'm so pleased to be out there. I can see how it would be very, very easy to sign one of those contracts. We were in Porsche for about an hour and everybody was sort of looking around the cars. I was watching people and you can just see them multiplying up. £600 a month, oh, it's not too bad. You can see how easy it is to sign those pieces of paper. Anyway, as promised, I thought we'd come back and we'd sort of have a look at PCP/lease agreements and hire purchase, and what really is the best way to buy a new car. So me and Nick, we just spent a bit of time looking at lease deals and PCP agreements, and we sort of guessed that a Super Mini is going to cost anywhere from £200 to £250 a month. That's like a Renault Clio or a Fiat 500, depending on how you spec it up and over what period of time you have it. We're basing these on 3 years, because that's generally what people take these out over. I think the deposits were about £1,500 in both instances, so pretty standard, looking at 200 to 250. Hatchbacks, we're talking Golfs, things like that, 250 to 400. You could spec them up quite highly and get way beyond the 400 if you wanted to, into the hot hatch territory. But then we looked at sort of junior execs, so like C classes, things like that. They're 400 to 550 a month. Executive, so E-classes, 550 to 750, and then luxury/sports cars, so you're talking like the Cayman S, like my wife's SQ7, I can tell you how much that is, that's £840 a month. The Cayman S that we saw there, that was £700 a month. So those sort of luxury sports cars, they're like 750 to 1,200 for a really spec'd up Range Rover, and then you go into supercar territory, and having spent some time in Lamborghini, having spent some time in Ferrari, I can tell you they're anything around £2,500 a month. If you want to go for something like a little more junior in sort of supercar category, maybe a McLaren 570S, about £1,500 a month is where you're going to be. So those are the rough figures in terms of how much the payment's going to be, either on a lease or a PCP, and we could argue till the cows come home over which one's best. Myself, generally speaking, I've gone for PCP agreements in my personal name, and the reason I've done that is because it's a personal car, I don't get to deduct the lease payments off anyway. I get to deduct my business mileage and charge that back, so I do get mileage, which is quite useful. But for me, PCP has always worked out a little bit cheaper than a lease, and ultimately has always given me the flexibility to be able to buy the car at the end. My E-Class being a prime example of a vehicle where I was paying £640 a month, I'm now paying £450. It's a 3-year-old car. I'm absolutely fine with running it for another 2 or 3 years. It's in great condition. I'm quite happy to switch that onto a hire purchase and continue making payments on there at a much reduced rate. Now, hire purchase, would I suggest that on a brand new car? Probably not. It's a much higher payment because you're getting rid of the balloon payment. So in these instances, these easily double to £400 a month for a Super Mini. So you can see how it becomes quite unaffordable quite quickly. The other thing that we were talking about when we were at Porsche actually with my buddy was just the cost of maintenance. And we think you can pretty much double each of these in terms of how much it's going to cost you to run a car. And I'm not just talking about maintenance because that would be ridiculous. You know, it doesn't cost $750 a month to run a Porsche. But his Porsche roughly had the 2 front brakes changed, that was £2,000. He had a service, that was £1,000. Then on top of that, you got fuel, insurance, car tax. He reckons it costs him about £7,500 a year on top of the monthly payments of £750 to run that vehicle. So it's not far off double. And I'm thinking about my wife's SQ7, it's similar. You know, we'd probably be paying close to £1,000 a corner in terms of brakes. We're paying a couple of £1,000 on a service once all the little bits come out in the wash. We're paying, you know, a lot for each corner in terms of tyres. It drinks a lot of fuel because it only does 30 miles to the gallon, even on a good run, and you can easily run it at 15 miles per gallon. It also is quite expensive on insurance because it goes 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and it's probably still worth 50, 60 grand at this point. It was 100 grand brand new. So, you know, you can see how all of these figures kind of double up per month. So what should you do when you're buying a car? Like, how do I view it? Now, obviously I can't give you financial advice, I'm not qualified to do so, but what I can do is just give you my thought process and how I work my way through these problems. So personally, the way that I look at things is very much that I want any of these luxuries to be paid for by my investments. And me and Nick, we had this sort of conversation in the car on the way down. And I said to him, I like investing because it means it guarantees me a better tomorrow than today. And I think that's really, really true. And if you can just delay these purchases a little bit of time so that you can get your investment income to pay for them. If you can run a 10-year-old Super Mini rather than buying a brand new one, and those payments can only be £50 a month or even £25 a month, you know, really, really, really low, then you get that spread where you can invest and then use the income from your investments to pay for these luxuries. So there is another train of thought which has just become more valuable. Take out the big lease, take out the big expense, and it will force you to be resourceful. It will force you to make the right moves and become more valuable. Me, I think that's really foolhardy. I think you should be diligent enough to be able to force yourself to do that without that expense hanging over your head. If you're not, you're probably not going to do it anyway. Ultimately, your why should be strong enough to pull you towards that destination. So this is how I see cars. Myself, I've currently got two vehicles. I've got an executive vehicle, which is an E-Class coupe, fully tripped out, two-tone leather, all that sort of stuff. That used to be £650 a month. It's now £450 a month because my refinance came through on it. I've got that on HP. Now, in terms of my wife's car, that is, I would say, a luxury sports car. You know, it's an SQ7. That one costs about £850 a month, and that one is on a PCP agreement. So that's how we fund them, and we've got 13 properties that pay into our pot every month in order for us to be able to afford them. Me, I think cars are one of the biggest traps that people can fall into. I would urge everybody to exercise caution whenever you visit any of these garages. They're geared up to make you spend, and I would say get the investments first, let them pay for your cars. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, drop it a big like, give me a subscribe, I'd massively appreciate it, and I'll see you again next week. Cheers, guys.